Dick Cheney is one of the most polarizing figures in America. But whatever your opinion of him, you'll be surprised to learn that during his years in government, his biggest fight was for his own survival. He's been the beneficiary of nearly every medical breakthrough to combat heart disease over the last 35 years, including a heart transplant at the age of 71. And as you'll hear tonight, many of those innovations came just in time to save his life. It's all revealed in a new book called Heart that he's written with his cardiologist, Jonathan Reiner. It's a medical story, but also a story about how his disease intersected with pivotal moments in modern history. Cheney's health was so tied to his political career, just 67 days after taking the oath as vice president, he took a historic and unprecedented action.
The story will continue in a moment.
Of 2001.
So nearly for your entire time as vice president, there was a letter of resignation sitting there, pending.
Cheney discovered there was no provision in the Constitution to replace a vice president who was alive but incapacitated. So he drew up a letter of resignation to give to the president.
It says, in accordance with Section 20 of Title III of the United States Code, I, Richard B. Cheney, hereby resign the office of Vice President of the United States.
How did President Bush react when you told him about this?
He was a little surprised, but he thought it was a good idea.
It was just 3 years ago, Cheney says, that people gasped when they saw how frail he had become. Today, just 20 months after his heart transplant, Cheney's weight is back to normal. The color has returned to his skin. He has no shortness of breath.
How are you feeling?
Fantastic. Now I'm to the point where I literally, feel like I have a new heart, a lot more energy than I had previously. There aren't any real physical limits on what I do. I fish, I hunt, and I don't ski, but that's because of my knees, not my heart. So it's been a miracle.
Dick Cheney is a product of modern medicine at its best. He has suffered 5 heart attacks, undergone open heart surgery, multiple catheterizations and angioplasties, had a defibrillator implanted, and a pump attached directly to his heart, all of that before his transplant at age 71. Each time Cheney reached the precipice of death, a breakthrough in medical technology extended his life. Bad hearts run in Dick Cheney's family, and early on he did little to take care of himself. He had his first cigarette at age 12, and by the time he was President Ford's chief of staff at age 34, his daily staples included fatty food, beer, and up to 3 packs a day.
And all the cigarette companies donated cigarettes in a white box with a gold trim around it, embossed with a presidential seal. That was kind of a, if you were a cocktail party or meeting in Washington and you whipped out your presidential cigarettes and lit it up with a pack of matches from Air Force One, that was sort of a status symbol.
After his first White House stint, Cheney returned to Wyoming to run for Congress. At just 37, his genetics and his lifestyle caught up with him. He suffered his first heart attack, and doctors thought he should quit the race. But he didn't want to hear it.
You were pretty persuasive. Because they said it would be wise to drop out of this at the present time.
They said that in the medical records.
They didn't tell you that?
Well, I don't recall. What I took away from the conversations was that key phrase, hard work never killed anybody. Now,
patients like to hear what they want to hear.
Well, and that may well have been the case here as well, too. But they also emphasized that stress comes from doing something you don't want to be doing.
He won that election, and 5 more after that. But his heart disease was steadily progressing. By the time Cheney took over as the first President Bush's Secretary of Defense in 1989, he'd suffered 3 heart attacks and undergone quadruple bypass surgery. It was a time of global upheaval, and Dick Cheney was in the center of it all. The collapse of communism, the uprising in China's Tiananmen Square, and the First Gulf War.
Our Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines prepare for one of the largest land assaults of modern times.
Looking back, do you think the stress affected your heart disease and your overall health?
I simply don't buy the notion that it contributed to my heart disease. It was, in fact, that getting back to work, getting back to that job, whatever that job might be, was important enough that I in fact, kept them separate, I guess would be the way to think about it.
But I do wonder, as a doctor, is that really plausible? Can you really keep such a significant medical history and such a significant job separate?
I did.
But when George W. Bush asked Cheney to be his running mate in 2000, there was enough concern that the Bush campaign sought out the opinion of world-renowned Texas heart surgeon Denton Cooley. After speaking with Cheney's cardiologist, Dr. Jonathan Reiner, Dr. Cooley told the Bush campaign that Cheney was in good health with normal cardiac function.
The normal cardiac function wasn't true.
Well, I'm not responsible for that. I don't know what took place between the doctors.
This idea that you have this respected heart surgeon from Texas who didn't see you, didn't examine you, and then write something saying that you have normal cardiac function, that just wasn't true, Mr. Vice President.
Well, go ask Denton Cooley about that.
But sir, you saw it.
Listen to me. I think the bottom line was I up to the task of being vice president. And there's no question, I think based upon the fact that I did it for 8 years, that they were right.
How were they able to say that you were able to do the job?
The way I look at it, Sanjay, is first of all, I didn't seek the job. The president came to me and asked me to be his vice president. The party nominated me. The doctors that consulted on it reached a common conclusion. The people elected me. Now, what basis do you want to override that decision-making process? Do you want to have an offshoot here where we come check with Sanjay Gupta and say, gee, is he up to the task? That's not the way it works.
Despite Cheney's insistence that he was fit for office, and just 4 months after being cleared by his doctors, Cheney suffered another heart attack, his fourth.
So it was there, it was chest discomfort, sufficient, so I thought I ought to check it out.
This time, it came while the country was embroiled in the 2000 presidential recount. Cheney needed a stent to prop open a clogged artery.
You ready to take the oath?
I am.
Please raise your right hand and repeat after me.
Yet again, modern medicine had helped Dick Cheney dodge a bullet. But it was just 9 months later when Cheney confronted what he considers one of the biggest challenges of his life, 9/11. With President Bush in Florida, Cheney was in a bunker under the White House helping make decisions, even given authority by the president to shoot down passenger airliners.
I mean, as far as stress goes, and again, as a doctor, with your heart history, how worried were you about just your health in the midst of all this?
Didn't occur to me.
Not at all.
No. I didn't think about my health. I was thinking about the problem we were dealing with.
But what Cheney didn't know was that his cardiologist, Jonathan Reiner, had received the results of a blood test that morning showing his potassium levels were dangerously high, a condition called hyperkalemia.
Big concern. I mean, how big are we talking about?
Potassium 6.9 can kill you.
This is a huge problem.
Yeah. I laid awake that night watching the replays of the towers come down and not thinking that, oh great, the vice president's going to die tonight of hyperkalemia.
Another blood test the next day showed Cheney's potassium levels were normal. But this level of scrutiny over Dick Cheney's health is a reminder he is no ordinary patient, and caring for him often required extraordinary precautions. In 2007, when Cheney needed his implanted defibrillator replaced, Dr. Reiner ordered the manufacturer to disable the wireless feature, fearing a terrorist could assassinate the vice president by sending a signal to the device telling it to shock his heart into cardiac arrest.
And it seemed to me to be a bad idea for the vice president of the United States to have a device that maybe somebody on a rope line or someone in the next hotel room or downstairs might be able to get into, hack into, and I worried that someone could kill you.
It might sound far-fetched, but years later, this scene from the Showtime drama Homeland showed just how it could be done to the fictional vice president.
I'm killing you.
What did you think when you watched that?
Well, I was aware of the danger, if you will, that existed. But I found it credible because I knew from the experience we'd had and the necessity for adjusting my own device that it was an accurate portrayal of what was possible.
The precariousness of Cheney's physical health raises questions about his state of mind when he was helping make decisions, including those about war and peace.
You were instrumental in many big decisions for the country, including going into Afghanistan and Iraq.
And terrorist surveillance program and enhanced interrogation.
Terrorist surveillance programs,
Did a lot of
wiretapping, enhanced interrogation. You had had 4 heart attacks, 3 catheterizations at this point, a defibrillator, bypass surgery.
Right.
Did you worry about your physical health impacting your judgment and your cognition?
No.
Not at all?
No.
Were you the best that you could be?
Well, I was as good as I could be, you know, given the fact that I was 60-some years old at that point and a heart patient.
Cheney didn't want to acknowledge numerous studies that show a significant connection between severe heart disease and memory loss, depression, a decline in decision-making abilities, and impaired cognition, or that he could be one of the many patients vulnerable to these side effects.
Did they talk at all about potential side effects, again, because of limited blood flow to the brain, on cognition, on judgment? Was that something that you had heard about in any way? You didn't know about it, you weren't worried about it?
No.
Both? You did,
No, I wasn't worried about it.
No one, did anyone counsel you at all on that?
Not that I recall.
What about even things like depression?
No.
And that's all he wanted to say about that. But what Dick Cheney was eager to talk about was his transplant, detailed in his new book, Heart.
When you emerge from that gift of life itself, there's this tremendous feeling of emotion, but it's very positive. I think my first words when I came out from under the anesthetic and they said it had worked great was hot damn, literally.
Cheney and Dr. Reiner wanted to show us just how dramatic his transformation has been.